The starship Crimson Mandate cut through the darkness of space like a blade through silk. Its hull gleaming with the promise of violence and the pride of conquest. Commander Viral Sarai stood on the bridge with her forearms crossed over her armored chest. Watching the newest batch of crew members file through the entrance portal, she was Cathrix, a species that had clawed its way to dominance through 8,000 years of brutal warfare. And every inch of her body reflected that heritage. Her exoskeleton was the color of dried blood. Her mandibles could crush bone, and her compound eyes missed nothing. 18 species, she announced to her second-in-command. A massive creature named Taurish, who belonged to the Drakeworm race. All of them killers, all of them proven in combat. All of them worthy of serving on my ship. Taurish nodded his enormous scaled head, his yellow eyes gleaming with predatory satisfaction. The Drakeworm were legendary hunters who tracked and killed megafauna on their homeworld for sport. Creatures that stood 30 meters tall and could crush starships beneath their feet. His species feared nothing in the known galaxy. "We have the finest crew in the sector," Taurish rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "The Varax twins are assassins who have never failed a contract. The Kethrani engineer once destroyed an enemy fleet by reprogramming their own weapons. And the Sylph navigator can calculate jump coordinates in her sleep." Laurel's mandibles clicked in approval as she reviewed the personnel file scrolling across her display. Apex predators, venomous killers, tactical geniuses, psychic warriors. This was a crew that could handle anything the contested fringe might throw at them. And then the final crew member stepped through the portal. Viral's compound eyes focused on the creature, and for a moment she thought there had been some mistake. It was small. Standing perhaps 1 3/4 meters tall, its skin was soft and pale, completely lacking scales, armor, or any natural protection. Its teeth, visible when it offered an uncertain smile, were blunt and flat. Designed for chewing plants rather than tearing flesh, it had no claws, no venom glands, no bioelectric field generators, no redundant organs, no natural weapons of any kind. "Trainee designation Marcus Cole," the personnel officer announced, and Viral could hear the barely suppressed amusement in his voice. "Assigned through the Galactic Integration Initiative. First deployment, species classification, human." The bridge fell silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then Taurish began to laugh. It started as a low rumble in his massive chest and built into a roaring thunder that shook the deck plates within moments. Every crew member on the bridge had joined in, their various forms of laughter creating a symphony of mockery. The Varax twins hissed with delight. The Kethrani engineer chittered, and even the normally stoic Sylph navigator allowed herself a soft clicking sound of amusement. "This is a joke," Taurish managed between his rumbling laughs, wiping tears from his reptilian eyes. "Humans are barely out of their gravity well. They have been spacefaring for less than 300 years. What is this creature supposed to do when we face real enemies? Bleed on them until they slip." More laughter erupted across the bridge. Marcus Cole stood perfectly still through all of it, his expression unchanged, his posture relaxed but attentive. He did not flinch. He did not look away. He did not show any sign that the mockery affected him at all. Viral found this mildly interesting but ultimately irrelevant. "Human," she said, and the bridge gradually fell silent as the crew recognized the tone of command in her voice. "Why are you on my ship?" Marcus met her compound eyes without hesitation, something that made several crew members shift uncomfortably. Prey species did not meet the gaze of predators. It was a universal constant across every ecosystem in the galaxy. "I'm here to learn." "Commander," he said, his voice calm and even. "The Galactic Integration Initiative believes that humans can contribute to joint operations, and I volunteered to prove that belief correct." Taurish snorted, smoke curling from his nostrils in amusement. "Contribute what?" "Exactly. Your species has no natural weapons. No special abilities, nothing that would be useful in combat or exploration or any other meaningful activity. We adapt. Marcus said. Simply. Viral studied the human for a long moment, her compound eyes analyzing his heat signature, his muscle tension, his chemical output. He was nervous. That much was clear from his elevated heart rate and the slight increase in his perspiration, but he was controlling that nervousness with an iron will that she had rarely seen in species. Far more formidable than his. It was almost impressive. Almost. Very well, Viral said finally, her mandibles clicking in dismissal. You wish to learn, human? Then you will learn. I am assigning you to sanitation and cargo manifest duties until further notice. A cargo notice. Assigning you to sanitation and cargo manifest duties until sanitation. Until further notice. A they? Ripple of cruel amusement passed through the bridge crew. Sanitation was the lowest possible assignment on any starship, reserved for maintenance drones and disgraced crew members being punished for serious failures. To assign a trainee to such duties was a deliberate insult. A message that said you are worth less than nothing here. Marcus simply nodded. Understood, Commander. Where should I report? Viral waved one of her forearms dismissively. Someone show the human to the waste processing center and make sure he understands which chemicals will dissolve his fragile skin. More laughter followed. Marcus, as a junior crew member, led him off the bridge. Viral watched him go, already dismissing him from her thoughts. He would last perhaps a week, maybe 2, if he was particularly stubborn, before the isolation and humiliation drove him to request that transfer. Humans were social creatures according to the files. They needed acceptance and belonging to function properly. She would deny him both until he broke. 3 months later, Marcus Cole was still aboard the Crimson Mandate. He had not complained. Not once. He cleaned the waste systems with the same calm efficiency he brought to organizing cargo manifests. He endured the accidental collisions in corridors that sent him sprawling, the caustic chemicals that appeared near his quarters, the meal portions that were always somehow spoiled or insufficient, and he watched it. Viral began to notice it during the 2nd month. The way his eyes tracked crew members as they moved through the ship, the way he lingered near conversations without appearing to listen, the way he asked questions that seemed laughably basic, but somehow always led to detailed explanations. What is that species called? He would ask a crew member, and they would explain the Varak's social hierarchy in detail, never realizing they were being interrogated. How does that system work? He would inquire about the ship's environmental controls, and the engineer would spend an hour teaching him every function. Pleased to have such an attentive audience. What happens if this breaks? He would wonder about critical systems, and maintenance crews would show him exactly where every vulnerability lay. By the 3rd month, Viral realized that Marcus Cole had stopped asking questions entirely. He simply moved through the ship like a shadow, performing his duties with mechanical precision, his soft human eyes absorbing everything and giving nothing away. She mentioned this observation to Tarish one evening over drinks in her private quarters. The human is still here, she said, her mandibles clicking thoughtfully. He should have broken by now. Tarish shrugged his massive shoulders. Some prey animals are too stupid to recognize when they are outmatched. He will learn eventually, or he will die on his first real mission. Either way, the problem solves itself. Viral was not so certain. There was something about the human that bothered her, something she could not quite identify. But she was a commander with real responsibilities and real threats to consider, and she did not have time to worry about one insignificant trainee that would prove to be a significant miscalculation. 2 weeks later, the distress signal arrived. The distress signal came from Vera 7, a small mining moon on the edge of the contested fringe, where 300 colonists extracted rare minerals from ancient geological formations. The Crimson Mandate was the closest patrol vessel, and Commander Viral ordered an immediate course change to investigate. Probably a reactor malfunction, Torish said as the ship dropped out of hyperspace near the gray and barren moon. These remote colonies are always cutting corners on maintenance. Viral nodded in agreement. But her compound eyes were already scanning the sensor readings. With growing unease, the colony was silent. Not the silence of a communication failure or a damaged transmitter, but the absolute silence of a place where life had simply stopped. No movement, no heat signatures, no electromagnetic activity of any kind. "Take us into orbit," she commanded. "Full sensor sweep. I want to know what happened down there before we send anyone to the surface." The sensor sweep revealed nothing useful. The colony structures were intact. The atmospheric processors were functioning. The mining equipment sat idle but undamaged. It was as if every living being had simply vanished in the middle of their daily routines. "I am detecting some unusual readings from the lower mining tunnels," the Sylph navigator reported, her pale eyes flickering as she processed the data. "Thermal signatures that do not match any of the colony's registered equipment." Viral leaned forward in her command chair. "Can you identify the source?" "Negative. Commander, the mineral deposits are interfering with detailed scans. But the mass calculations suggest something substantial is down there. Possibly biological." Teresh's scales rippled with anticipation. "We should send a ground team immediately. Whatever took those colonists might still be in the area, and I would very much like to have words with it." Viral was about to agree when a voice interrupted from the back of the bridge. "Commander, permission to access the secondary sensor array." Every head turned to see Marcus Cole standing near the cargo monitoring station, his sanitation uniform still bearing traces of the cleaning chemicals he had been working with. Viral's first instinct was to dismiss him back to his duties. But something in his expression made her pause. The human looked different somehow, more focused, more present than she had ever seen him. "Why?" she demanded. "I have been monitoring the cargo systems for 3 months, Marcus said. "I noticed some anomalies in the mass calculations that might be relevant to this situation." Torish let out a dismissive snort. "The human wants to play detective." "How adorable, Commander. We do not have time for this. Every moment we waste is a moment those colonists could be dying." "1 minute," Viral said, surprising herself. "Show me what you have found." "Human." Marcus moved to the sensor station with a confidence that seemed entirely out of place for a sanitation trainee. His fingers danced across the controls, pulling up data streams and overlaying them with the colony's cargo manifests. The colony reported shipping approximately 2,000 tons of refined minerals in their last quarterly report, he explained. But the mass readings from the structures suggest only 1,600 tons of inorganic material. That leaves 400 tons unaccounted for. The Sylph navigator frowned. "Equipment malfunction. Sensor drift. There are dozens of explanations." "I considered all of them," Marcus said. "But when I factor in the thermal anomalies from the lower tunnels and cross-reference with the colony's population data, I get a very different picture." He pulled up a new display. 300 colonists averaging 60 kilograms each, plus biological support systems, food stores, and organic waste. The total biological mass of this colony should be approximately 420 tons. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. "The colonists are still there," Viral said slowly. "In the tunnels, and so is whatever took them," Marcus confirmed, his voice flat and calm. "Based on the thermal patterns and the way the readings are distributed, I believe we are dealing with a Kethfer hunting pack." The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop by 10 degrees. Viral's mandibles went still, and Teresh's confident expression vanished entirely. Even the Verax twins, who feared almost nothing in the galaxy, exchanged uneasy glances. "Kethfer," Torish breathed. "That is impossible." They have not been seen in this sector for decades. Marcus shook his head. The evidence suggests otherwise. The claw patterns on the airlock doors match Kethver physiology. The way the colonists were taken without any recorded weapon discharge matches their hunting tactics. And the thermal masking using mineral deposits is a documented Kethver concealment strategy. Viral stood from her command chair, her forearms clenching into fists. The Kethver were nightmares given form. Parasitic hunters who did not simply kill their prey, but collected them. They kept their victims alive in organic cocoons, feeding on them slowly over weeks or months while their bodies produced the specific hormones that the Kethver found most nourishing: fear hormones, pain hormones, the chemistry of suffering. How long have you been tracking these readings? Viral demanded. 6 hours, Marcus admitted. I wanted to be certain before I brought it to your attention. 6 hours, Torish snarled. And you said nothing while we flew into a Kethver hunting ground. I said nothing because I needed time to analyze the situation and develop a response strategy, Marcus replied, meeting the massive Drakevon's furious gaze without flinching. Panic would not have saved those colonists. Viral stepped between them before Torish could respond. What strategy? She asked. The human Marcus pulled up a new display, showing the colony's tunnel system in detail. The Kethver have approximately 12 hours before the colonists begin dying from the cocooning process. Their biology requires living prey, so they will not harm them before that deadline. We have a window to act. And do what? Torish demanded. Fight a Kethver pack in their own nest, even with our full crew. The casualties would be catastrophic. I am not suggesting we fight them, Marcus said. I am suggesting we outsmart them. He began outlining his plan with the calm precision of someone who had spent considerable time thinking about this exact scenario. The Kethver were apex predators with highly developed sensory capabilities. They could detect the pheromones and biological signatures of other predators from hundreds of meters away. Every crew member on the Crimson Mandate, being drawn from apex species themselves, would register as a threat to be neutralized immediately. But humans are different, Marcus continued. We evolved as persistence predators on a world filled with creatures larger, faster, and more dangerous than ourselves. Our biology does not scream threat the way yours does. To Kethver senses, I will register as prey, harmless and not worth the pack's attention. Viral studied the human with new eyes. You are suggesting that you infiltrate the nest alone. I am suggesting that I locate the colonists while you provide a distraction. Marcus corrected. The Kethver will respond to an apparent threat at the main entrance. They will send most of their pack to defend while I extract the colonists through the secondary ventilation system. And if they catch you? Torish asked. Something almost like respect creeping into his voice. Marcus smiled. And for the first time, Viral saw something ancient and dangerous in that expression. Then you had better make that distraction very convincing. Viral made her decision in that moment. Prep the ground team, she ordered. The human goes in first. The shuttle descended through the thin atmosphere of Vareth 7 with Marcus Cole sitting alone in the cargo bay. Checking his equipment for the third time, he had a cutting tool for the cocoons, a medical scanner to assess the colonists, a communication device linked to the Crimson Mandate, and a small pouch containing something he had spent 3 months carefully collecting. Nothing else. No weapons, no armor, no backup. Human. Commander Viral's voice crackled through his earpiece. We are detecting movement in the tunnel system. The Kethver know something is happening. Good, Marcus replied. That means they are alert. Alert predators make predictable decisions on the bridge of the Crimson Mandate. Torish shook his massive head in disbelief. The creature walks into certain death and calls it good. Perhaps humans are simply too stupid to understand fear. Viral said nothing. But she found herself gripping her command chair with unnecessary force. The human's plan was insane by any reasonable standard. One soft and fragile being against a pack of the most feared hunters in the galaxy. But there was something about the way Marcus had presented that plan. Something about the calm certainty in his voice that made her believe it might actually work. The shuttle touched down at the colony's main landing pad, and Marcus stepped out into the cold, recycled air. The colony was exactly as the sensors had shown. Structures intact but empty, equipment idle, personal belongings scattered as if their owners had simply stepped away for a moment and never returned. Moved toward the entrance to the mining tunnels with careful, measured steps. 3 months of watching and learning had taught him exactly how the crew of the Crimson Mandate moved. The confident stride of apex predators who feared nothing. He forced himself to move differently, to shrink his posture and shuffle his feet, to project every signal of harmless prey that his body could produce. The entrance to the tunnels was a massive industrial airlock designed to handle heavy mining equipment. The claw marks Viral had noticed were clearly visible on the metal surface. Deep gouges that spoke of incredible strength and razor-sharp natural weapons. Marcus paused to study them, adding to his mental catalog of Kethver capabilities. Then he opened the airlock and stepped into darkness. The tunnels were warm and humid, a stark contrast to the cold surface above. The Kethver had modified the environmental systems to match their preferred conditions. Another sign that they intended to stay for a while. Marcus activated his scanner and began moving deeper into the complex. He encountered his first Kethver sentry, approximately 200 meters into the tunnel system. Creature was exactly as horrifying as the files had described. A nightmare of black chitin and too many limbs. It stood nearly 3 meters tall on 8 segmented legs. Its body a twisted fusion of insect and something far more alien. Sensory fronds extended from what might have been a head, waving gently in the air currents as it searched for threats. Marcus kept walking toward it. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run, to fight, to do anything except continue moving toward the monster that could tear him apart. In seconds, he ignored those instincts. Humans had been ignoring those instincts for 200,000 years, walking toward cave bears and saber-toothed cats and every other nightmare their world had produced. That was the secret that no other species in the galaxy seemed to understand. Humans were not brave because they lacked fear. They were brave because they felt fear more intensely than almost any other species, and they had learned to act despite it. The Kethver sentry detected him. Its sensory fronds swiveled in his direction, analyzing his heat signature, his chemical output, his biological classification. Marcus could almost feel the creature's hunting instincts evaluating him. Threat or prey, fight or ignore. He kept his heart rate as steady as possible, kept his body language submissive and unthreatening, kept walking with the slow shuffle of something that did not even realize it should be afraid. The sentry's fronds twitched. Prey. Its biology concluded small prey, soft prey, not worth abandoning the post. When there were 300 much more satisfying victims already secure below it, let him pass. Marcus did not allow himself to feel relief until he was 200 meters past the sentry and deep into the lower tunnel system. Then he permitted himself exactly 3 seconds of controlled breathing before continuing his mission. Commander, he transmitted quietly. First contact successful. Kethver sentry bypassed without incident. Continuing to the main chamber on the Crimson Mandate. Viral's mandibles clicked in what might have been surprise. The human made it past the first guard, Turish said, his voice carrying a note of grudging respect. Perhaps he is not entirely useless after all. Maintain position, Viral ordered her ground team. Wait for the human signal before beginning the distraction. Marcus continued deeper into the tunnels, passing 2 more sentries using the same technique each time. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped animal. Each time, he forced himself to project harmlessness and insignificance. Each time the Kethver evaluated him as prey not worth the effort of killing. The main chamber was exactly what he had expected and far worse than he had imagined. It was a natural cavern that the miners had expanded nearly 100 meters across and 50 meters high. The ceiling was covered with organic cocoons, hundreds of them, each containing a colonist suspended in biological webbing that kept them alive but immobile. He could see their faces through the translucent material, their eyes wide with terror, their mouths open in silent screams that the webbing prevented from escaping. The fear hormones must have been incredible. The chamber was not empty. At least 20 Kethver moved through the space, tending to the cocoons, feeding from tubes that extended into the organic material, communicating with each other through clicks and chemical signals. The pack leader was obvious. Larger than the others, with more elaborate sensory fronds and an air of authority that transcended species, Marcus moved along the wall of the chamber, staying in the shadows, keeping his body language prey-like and his movements slow. He reached the environmental control node that he had identified from the colony schematics, the same systems he had studied during his time in sanitation. His fingers found the interface and began working. Commander, he transmitted. Colonists located. Approximately 300 individuals in cocoons. Condition appears stable, but deteriorating. Beginning extraction protocol. Start the distraction in 90 seconds. Understood. Viral's voice came back. Cole, the reinforcements are still 12 hours away. If this goes wrong, we cannot extract you. I know, Marcus replied. Just make the distraction convincing. He pulled a small pouch from his belt and opened it. Inside were samples he had collected over 3 months of cleaning crew quarters. Biological material containing the concentrated pheromones of 18 different apex predator species. Drakvar. Aggression markers, Catholic territorial signals, Varax hunting. Chemicals every species on the Crimson Mandate had contributed to this collection without ever knowing it. Marcus connected the samples to the environmental system and began programming the distribution sequence in exactly 90 seconds. The ventilation system would flood this chamber with the concentrated essence of the most dangerous hunters in the galaxy. Kethver senses. It would seem as if an army had materialized in their nest at the same moment. The ground team would attack the main entrance with everything they had, creating a secondary threat that demanded immediate response. The Kethver would have to choose between defending their nest from an apparent overwhelming force or protecting their prey from a handful of attackers. Their hunting instincts would choose the greater threat. Every time Marcus finished the programming and began moving toward the first row of cocoons, 60 seconds until the distraction began. Time to see if his 3 months of preparation would pay off. The first ventilation shaft opened with a soft hiss that was immediately drowned out by the chaos that followed. Concentrated predator pheromones flooded the main chamber in an invisible wave, triggering every survival instinct. The Kethver possessed. 20 hunters simultaneously reacted to what their senses told them was an impossible situation. Dozens of apex predators materializing in their nest without warning. The pack leader let out a screech that echoed through the cavern, its sensory fronds whipping back and forth as it tried to locate the threats that its biology insisted must be present. The other Kethver responded with equal panic, abandoning their positions around the cocoons and forming defensive clusters throughout the chamber. At that exact moment, the main tunnel entrance exploded with light and sound. Toresh led the ground team's assault with a Drakvar war cry that shook dust from the ceiling, his massive form illuminated by weapons fire as he charged toward the tunnel opening. The Varax twins flanked him, their hissing battle calls adding to the chaos, while the Kethrani engineer triggered a series of sonic devices that amplified the impression of a full-scale military assault to the Kethver, already overwhelmed by pheromone signatures suggesting an army in their nest. The attack at the entrance confirmed their worst fears. They were under assault from multiple directions by forces that far outnumbered them. The pack leader made the only decision its instincts would allow. It screamed command that sent the entire pack surging toward the main entrance, leaving the cocoons and their precious contents unguarded. They would deal with the obvious threat first, then hunt down whatever had infiltrated their chamber. Marcus was already moving before the last Kethver left the cavern. He activated his cutting tool and began slicing through the first cocoon, catching the colonist inside as she tumbled free. She was a middle-aged woman with terror still frozen on her face, her body weak from days of immobility, but her eyes suddenly sharp with desperate hope. "Can you walk?" Marcus asked quietly. "I think so," she managed, her voice rough from disuse. "Then help me free the others. We have maybe 10 minutes before they realize they have been tricked." The woman nodded and stumbled to her feet, accepting a spare cutting tool that Marcus had brought for exactly this purpose. They worked in focused silence, slicing through cocoons and helping colonists to their feet. Most of the captives were in similar condition, weakened but mobile, their bodies not yet damaged beyond recovery. Marcus directed them toward the secondary ventilation system, a network of maintenance shafts that led to the surface through a route the Kethvar had not bothered to guard. Why would they guard against prey escaping when the prey could not move? The first 100 colonists were through the ventilation shafts and climbing toward the surface when Marcus heard the distant sounds of the battle at the main entrance changing. The weapon's fire was becoming less coordinated. The war cries, more strained. Teresh's voice came through his earpiece, rough with exertion. "Human, we cannot hold them much longer. They are realizing the attack is a diversion. Keep them occupied for 5 more minutes," Marcus replied, his cutting tool slicing through another cocoon. "We are almost done." 5 minutes, Teresh growled. "I will give you 3. After that, we are falling back whether you are finished or not." Marcus worked faster. Colonists who could move on their own helped those who could not, creating a chain of survivors flowing toward the ventilation shafts. 200 freed, 250. The sounds of battle were definitely closer now, and Marcus could hear Kethver screeches mixing with the weapon's fire. The pack was pushing back, their initial panic giving way to the cold calculation of experienced hunters too. 180 colonists freed and moving toward safety. 290. Marcus cut through the last cocoon and caught the final colonist, a young man who was barely conscious. He lifted the man over his shoulder and began moving toward the ventilation shafts. The pack leader entered the chamber. Just as Marcus reached the shaft entrance, it saw the empty cocoons first. The organic prisons that had held 300 victims now sliced open and abandoned. Then its sensory fronds focused on the single figure standing at the far end of the chamber, the small soft creature that it had dismissed as harmless prey. The pack leader screamed in fury. Marcus did not run. He lowered the unconscious colonist to the ground beside the shaft entrance and turned to face the case creature that was already moving toward him with murder in its alien eyes. "Your prey is gone," he said, his voice carrying across the chamber with surprising clarity. 300 colonists are climbing to the surface right now, and there is nothing you can do to stop them. The pack leader slowed its charge, confusion mixing with rage in its body language. Prey did not speak to predators this way. Prey did not stand its ground when death approached. "You deceived us," the creature hissed in broken galactic standard. its voice a rasping nightmare of clicks and growls. You made us see threats that were not there. You made us abandon our hunt. Yes, Marcus agreed simply. How is this possible? The pack leader demanded. You are small, you are soft, you have no weapons, no armor. No natural defenses. You are prey. Marcus smiled. And the expression made the pack leader pause despite itself. There was something wrong with that smile. It was not the desperate grimace of a cornered animal or the false bravado of a creature trying to hide its fear. It was the patient smile of something that had been waiting for this moment. My species has a saying, Marcus said. Never underestimate the prey. The ventilation shaft behind him had been filling with freed colonists. A steady stream of survivors escaping to the surface. The pack leader could hear them moving, could smell their fear, could calculate exactly how long it would take to catch them if it abandoned the strange human and gave chase. You cannot stop us all, the human continued. Even if you kill me right now, the colonists will reach the surface before your pack can catch them. And there is a warship in orbit waiting to extract them the moment they emerge. The pack leader's sensory fronds twitched. Then you have sacrificed yourself for nothing. Human, the prey escapes, but you die. Maybe, Marcus acknowledged. But here's the thing about humans that your species never learned. He took a step toward the pack leader. The creature actually flinched. We do not measure victory by survival, Marcus said. We measure it by whether we accomplished what we set out to do. Those colonists are going to live because I chose to be here. That is all that matters. The pack leader stared at the human with something it had never experienced before in its long hunting career. Uncertainty. This small, soft creature showed no signs of fear. No desperation, no attempt to flee or beg for mercy. It simply stood there, accepting death as the price of victory. And somehow that acceptance was more terrifying than any threat. Display the pack leader had ever witnessed. What are you? It whispered. Marcus looked at the monster. That could kill him with a single strike, and spoke the truth. I am human. And we have been hunting things like you since before your species learned to walk. The pack leader did not respond. It simply stood there, frozen in a moment of impossible choice, while the last of the colonists disappeared into the ventilation shafts and began their climb to freedom. The standoff in the chamber stretched into seconds that felt like hours. Marcus stood alone facing the Kethver pack leader, while behind him the last colonists climbed toward safety. He could hear the rest of the pack returning from the main entrance, their screeches echoing through the tunnels as they realized the true nature of the deception. 12 more Kethver emerged from the darkness, forming a crescent around Marcus that cut off any possible escape. Their hunting formation was perfect, the result of millions of years of evolutionary refinement. No prey had ever escaped this configuration. Marcus did not attempt to run. Human, the pack leader said, moving closer until its sensory fronds were almost touching his face. You have cost us 300 prey, an entire season of feeding. Do you understand what we will do to you in return? Marcus met the creature's alien gaze without flinching. I have a good imagination. We will not kill you quickly, the pack leader continued, its voice carrying the cold promise of a predator that had never known defeat. We will keep you alive for months, feeding on your suffering, learning every way your species experiences pain. You will beg for death long before we grant it. Probably, Marcus agreed, his tone almost conversational. Pack leader's fronds twitched in confusion. This was not how prey behaved. Prey begged. Prey screamed. Prey tried desperately to escape, even when escape was impossible. This human simply stood there, accepting his fate with a calmness that bordered on the obscene. You do not fear us, the pack leader realized. I fear you very much, Marcus corrected. My heart is beating so fast right now that I can barely breathe. My body is screaming at me to run even though there is nowhere to go. Every survival instinct I possess is telling me that I am about to die badly. He smiled again. That strange, patient smile that made the Kethver uncomfortable. But fear is not the same as surrender. And humans learned the difference a very long time ago. The pack leader considered this for a moment. Tell me, it said finally, before you die, tell me how your species learned this lesson. Marcus took a breath and began to speak. 200,000 years ago, my ancestors lived on a planet that was trying very hard to kill them. Everything was bigger, faster, stronger, better armed. There were cats that could crush a human skull with one bite, bears that stood 3 times our height, wolves that hunted in packs of 50. The Kethver listened with growing fascination. They had hunted countless species across the galaxy. But none had ever spoken to them like this. None had ever stood in the shadow of death and calmly explained why they were not afraid. We should have gone extinct. Marcus continued. By every measure that matters in nature, humans had no right to survive. We were slow, we were weak, we had no natural weapons. Our children took years to mature while other species were hunting within months of birth. And yet, you survived. The pack leader observed. We did more than survive, Marcus said. We conquered. He gestured at the chamber around them, at the empty cocoons and the tunnels beyond. Do you want to know how? Do you want to know the secret that let a species of soft, slow, defenseless apes become the dominant force on their planet? The pack leader found itself nodding, drawn into the story despite its better judgment. We refused to accept our place, Marcus said. Every other species on our world looked at the predators and learned to run, learned to hide, learned to accept their role as prey. But humans looked at those same predators and had a different thought. His voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. We thought, how do we kill that? The chamber fell silent. We studied them, Marcus continued. We learned their patterns, their weaknesses, their fears. We developed tools and tactics and strategies, and then we hunted them. He looked directly at the pack leader. We hunted them until they feared us. We hunted them until they fled at the sight of our fires. We hunted them until most of them were extinct. Not because we were hungry, not because we needed to, but because we refused to be prey. The pack leader's sensory fronds had gone very still. You are telling me, it said slowly, that your species systematically eliminated the apex predators of your homeworld. Most of them, Marcus confirmed. The survivors learned to avoid us, to hide from us, to treat humans as something to be feared rather than hunted. We changed the fundamental equation of predator and prey on an entire planet. He took a step forward. The pack leader took a step back. It did not realize it had done so until the movement was complete. And by then it was too late to pretend the retreat had not happened. Your species hunts for food, Marcus said. You take prey because you need to survive. But humans hunt for different reasons. We hunt threats, we hunt challenges. We hunt anything that makes us feel like prey. Another step forward. The crescent formation around him began to waver. You have made yourselves a threat to human protected space. Marcus continued. You have taken prey from a world under galactic integration jurisdiction. Do you understand what that means? The pack leader said nothing. It means we will hunt you. Marcus said, not just this pack, not just this sector, but your entire species. We will learn everything about you. We will find every weakness. We will develop weapons and tactics specifically designed to kill Kethver. And we will pursue you across every corner of this galaxy until you are no longer a threat. His voice hardened. That is what humans do to things that make us feel like prey. The pack leader looked at the small, soft creature before it and finally understood. This was not prey. This had never been prey. This was something far more dangerous. A predator so patient and so relentless that it had learned to wear the skin of prey while it studied its targets. The Kefir had been hunters for millions of years. They had taken countless species, spread across dozens of worlds, built a reputation as the most feared predators in the galaxy. But in that moment, facing a single exhausted human in a mining tunnel on a worthless moon, the pack leader felt something it had never experienced before: fear. True fear. The kind of fear that came from recognizing a superior predator. The colony is under human protection now, Marcus said. My ship has transmitted your biosignatures to every patrol in the sector. If you stay, you will be hunted. If you flee, you may survive. He paused. Choose. The pack leader looked at its pack, at the 12 hunters who had never retreated from anything in their lives. Then it looked at the human and it made a decision that would echo through Kefir culture for generations. It lowered its sensory fronds in the universal gesture of submission. We withdraw our hunt, it said, the words seeming to physically paint it. We will leave this sector and never return to human-protected space. The other Kefir made sounds of shock and protest, but the pack leader silenced them with a sharp gesture. Go, it commanded. Now, before this creature changes its mind, the pack began to withdraw, flowing toward the tunnel exits with the speed of creatures fleeing a forest fire. The pack leader was the last to go. It paused at the chamber entrance and turned back to look at the human one final time. I will tell others of your kind, it said. I will tell them what I learned here today. Good, Marcus replied. Tell them this as well. He met the creature's gaze with eyes that held something ancient and implacable. We are just getting started. The pack leader disappeared into the darkness. Commander Viral found Marcus 30 minutes later, sitting on a rock near the ventilation shaft entrance, surrounded by 300 grateful colonists. The Kefir pack has fled the system, she reported, her voice carrying a note of disbelief. They did not even attempt to retrieve their equipment or supplies. Marcus nodded slowly. They will not be back. Tarish stood behind the commander, his massive form covered in the marks of combat. He stared at the human with an expression that mixed respect, awe, and something that might have been fear. What did you say to them? He asked. Marcus looked up at the Drakefern, who had laughed at him 3 months ago, who had called him weak and useless and destined to fail. I told him the truth about humans, he said simply. Viral's mandibles clicked in what Marcus had learned to recognize as thoughtful consideration. I believe, she said carefully, that your trainee designation may have been a miscategorization. Marcus smiled. And this time, it was the polite smile he had worn when he first came aboard. We are all trainees, Commander. Some of us have just been training longer, behind them, already spreading across the stars at faster than light speeds. The pack leader's warning was reaching every Kefir hunting collective in the Sector 5. Simple words that would change the balance of power in the contested fringe forever. Do not hunt the humans. They hunt back.